The historical Jesus lived in a cultural world where people believed that all the goods of life were limited in quantity and already distributed. They lived by the norm, "There's no more where this came from." Contrast that idea with the American conviction, "There's always more where this came from." In the biblical world, to get ahead or improve your lot in life was completely unthinkable. A person who gained something was always suspected of taking it, even if unintentionally, from someone else. That was shameful. Remember the woman who found her lost coin? And the man who found his lost sheep? They were obliged to prove to the community that this was indeed what was lost, and not something they had stolen to replace the loss. It is this cultural background which defines rich and poor in the biblical sense, that is, according to circum-Mediterranean culture. To be rich in this sense means, among other things, that you don't have to work for a living. Consider Zacchaeus, the chief of toll collectors in his region. He hired collectors and levied a percentage on the toll for his support, but he did not personally collect the tolls. To be poor in this cultural sense is to have lost your basic status, your basic honor rating temporarily, whether landowner or beggar. Biblically, you can be poor and have 1,000,000 denarii. The Bible frequently mentions poor widows and orphans in one breath. Neither status was viewed as permanent. Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 30. Jesus said to the Pharisees, "There was a rich man who dressed in purple garments and fine linen, and dined sumptuously each day. And lying at his door was a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who would gladly have eaten his fill of the scraps that fell from the rich man's table. Dogs even used to come and lick his sores. When the poor man died, he was carried away by angels to the bosom of Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried, and from the netherworld, where he was in torment, he raised his eyes and saw Abraham far off, and Lazarus at his side. And he cried out, 'Father Abraham, have pity on me. Send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am suffering torment in these flames.' Abraham replied, 'My child, remember that you received what was good during your lifetime, while Lazarus likewise received what was bad. But now he is comforted here, whereas you are tormented. Moreover, between us and you a great chasm is established, to prevent anyone from crossing who might wish to go from our side to yours, or from your side to ours.' He said, 'Then I beg you, Father, send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, so that he may warn them, lest they too come to this place of torment.' But Abraham replied, 'They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them.' He said, 'Oh no, Father Abraham, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent.' Then Abraham said, 'If they will not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded if someone should rise from the dead.'" Before beginning this reflection on the greedy man and Lazarus, I'd like to bring to your attention a playlist on 5 of the most difficult to understand parables of Jesus, entitled simply The Parables of Jesus. Among them, you will be able to find several videos on the rich man and Lazarus, or should I say, the greedy man and Lazarus. I will link this playlist and these videos to you at the end of the presentation. This parable contrasts a rich and poor man. The rich man is clearly affluent and blessed with surplus. His cultural obligation, common to anyone with surplus, was to give alms. Any windfall of wealth must be immediately distributed. To retain surplus for yourself in this biblical world is to be greedy. In fact, it is perfectly appropriate to substitute greedy for the word rich in the New Testament. Lazarus is described as a poor man who lay prostrate at the rich man's gate. He is probably crippled and definitely covered with sores, an impurity doubly compounded by the wild dogs who lick him. In this cultural world 2,000 years ago, dogs were not pets. They were seen as vermin. And these animals are not licking Lazarus to ease his pain. They are getting ready to eat him. Curiously, Lazarus is not begging. How can the rich man give alms if Lazarus does not beg? Hearers of this parable would have thought the worst of Lazarus. His illness suggests divine punishment. Clearly, he's lost his honor status, and by not begging, he makes no effort to regain his status. The gate by which Lazarus posts himself performs two functions. It keeps Lazarus outside and the rich man inside. But it can also be the rich man's entry into the world where he can give alms or become a patron to needy clients. This creates a gap between the two characters, which only grows larger as the story progresses. This is a story about reversal, and the theme of reversal is very common in ancient stories. The surprise in this story is that only after both characters die do we learn about the reversal. Here is the first indication that the rich man was derelict. Even in death, the rich man still does not get it. He tries to trade on ancestral spiritual family privilege by addressing Abraham as father. Surely status should help, but it doesn't. Even more tactlessly, he still views Lazarus as his inferior. "Send Lazarus to refresh me," he calls out to Abraham. Abraham's response concludes the parable and makes the point. The poor one who suffered bad things is now consoled. The rich one who was consoled with good things in life is now tormented and shamed. This is not a moral teaching. It's just an illustration of the Lucan Beatitudes in Jesus' Sermon on the Plain. But as with the parable of the lost sons, so in this parable there is an appendix, the stinging thrust. Here, a moral dimension is introduced. The rich man's blind insistence that Lazarus be sent to warn his surviving brothers is countered with Abraham's reference to the law and prophets, implying that the rich man and his brothers should already know about caring for the poor. Addressed to the Pharisees, whom the anonymous author called Luke has parenthetically identified as lovers of money, Jesus' parable is a message of rejection. Even if somebody were to actually return from the dead, and of course, Pharisees believed in the ancient Persian belief of resurrection, the obstinate Pharisees would continue on their merry way to cosmic shame, just like the rich man did in this story.